The quarantine sirens started blaring over the calm hum of the orbital medical station, slicing through the stillness like a knife. Klaxons flashed red across the sterile corridor as a panicked voice crackled over the intercom. Containment breach in Sector B7. Lockdown initiated. All medical personnel report immediately. Inside the examination chamber, the alien physician known as Drilax flared all 6 of its retinal lobes in alarm. It turned to the quarantine pod behind it, which sizzled with containment fields around a single human occupant. Kyle Branson coughed. Not a dramatic hacking cough, just one of those dry, annoying ones that felt like a tickle at the back of your throat. He sniffled, rubbed his nose with the back of his hand, and blinked blearily at the translucent barrier. "Hey, Doc, you got any tissues in here?" Drilax recoiled a full meter backward. "The subject is symptomatic," it said in its clicking dialect, which the translator promptly softened into English. "Respiratory distress has begun. Indicators of viral transmission confirmed. Initiating Level 7 biohazard protocol." Kyle blinked slowly. What? "I just got a cold, man." Drilax didn't answer immediately. It was already interfacing with the station's central AI, feeding in Kyle's vitals, which were by any human standard completely unremarkable. Temperature slightly elevated, heart rate normal, oxygen levels fine. But to Drilax, the anomalies were glaring. From its perspective, Kyle showed all the markers of a Class E omega pathogen infection. That particular virus hadn't been seen in the galaxy in over 3 centuries. The last species infected had gone extinct within 3 weeks of the initial outbreak. "Please remain calm," Drilax instructed. "Your biometric readings indicate infection with a known galactic-level pathogen. You will be isolated pending further analysis." Kyle looked around the sterile chamber. "You already got me in a fish tank. How much more isolated you want me?" The door to the chamber hissed open and 2 sanitation drones hovered in, spraying a fine mist of decontamination vapor that made Kyle sneeze violently. "Jesus. Okay. Thanks for that. I think I just inhaled half a bottle of Lysol." Drilax looked at the drones. "Increase dosage." The subject's response is insufficient. Kyle sat on the edge of the exam table, rubbing his temple. "Doc, I'm telling you, I don't have some space plague. I think I picked up a bug from one of your cafeteria trays. Or maybe it's the recycled air. Happens all the time back home." "You are from Earth, correct?" Drilax asked. "Yeah. Minnesota. Is that relevant?" Drilax turned to the AI screen. "Earth is designated a biohazard Tier 3 planetary body. Pathogen analysis indicates presence of viral strains similar to Earth rhinovirus. But the mutation rate and aggressive protein shell suggests something far more dangerous." Kyle sighed and leaned back, coughing once more. "It's literally just a cold. I'll drink some water, take a nap, and I'll be fine by tomorrow." Drilax's lobes dimmed slightly, a sign of extreme concern. "You are unaware of the severity. Over 40 species have no immune defense against this virus. It is considered terminal." "Yeah, well, for humans, it's called the sniffles. You take some cold meds and go on with your day." Drilax paused. "Cold. Medication?" Kyle gave a weak nod. "Yeah, you know. Antihistamines. Decongestants. Maybe some ibuprofen. Usually knocks it out in a couple days." The alien stared at him, unblinking. "You have pharmacological agents that neutralize this virus?" "Not neutralize. Just manage symptoms. You ride it out." "Ride it out?" Kyle chuckled, then winced as his throat twinged. "It's not fun, but it's not lethal. Unless you're, like, 90 and have a bad immune system." Drilax turned back to the AI. "Begin full upload of Earth pharmaceutical records. Cross-reference all known compounds against Omega variant pathogens." The AI chirped, then responded. "Over 1,300 unmatched compounds detected. Initial analysis suggests Earth species hosts have evolved coexistence with multiple viral strains." Drilax was silent for a long moment. Unthinkable. Then, without warning, the lights in the chamber shifted to a cyan hue. The AI spoke again. "Emergency alert. Station-wide contamination risk escalating. One crew member in engineering reports similar symptoms. Drilax stiffened. Seal all sections. Initiate full lockdown. No one enters or leaves until containment is confirmed. Kyle stood up from the table. Whoa, hold on. You think I infected the whole station? You were the vector, Drilax replied. Your biological composition is incompatible with standard containment models. You must be detained until the threat is neutralized. I told you, it's a cold. You're treating me like I've got space Ebola. Ebola? Forget it. An hour later, Kyle was still locked inside the chamber, now with a blanket, a bottle of water, and a tablet loaded with old Earth sitcoms. Another sneeze escaped him and he dabbed at his nose with a napkin. Outside, Drilax was coordinating with the Galactic Health Council via encrypted transmission. The footage of Kyle coughing had already been archived, tagged, and submitted as evidence of the re-emergence of the Omega-class virus. The response was swift. Subject must be euthanized to prevent galactic outbreak, came the message from Counselor Varn of the Lethari conglomerate. Drilax hesitated. Kyle might have been a threat, but he was also stable. Not deteriorating, not hemorrhaging, not convulsing. In fact, he was now watching something called Brooklyn Nine-Nine and laughing so hard he had to pause to blow his nose. Drilax opened the comm channel to the chamber. Kyle? Yeah? Your condition is unchanged? Still sniffly. Little achy. I'd kill for some Dayquil. I require a sample of your medication. Kyle blinked. I don't have any on me. Drilax turned to the AI. Access Earth Medical Resupply Cache. Identify relevant compounds used in Dayquil. Synthesize at once. 20 minutes later, a small vial was passed into the chamber via a sterilized delivery chute. Kyle looked at it, shrugged, and drank it in one gulp. Not bad. Kinda minty. Drilax watched him for the next hour. No worsening symptoms. In fact, Kyle seemed more energetic. He was now pacing the chamber, stretching, and humming to himself. He is adapting, Drilax murmured. The AI confirmed. Subject's immune response is neutralizing viral activity. No replication detected. Then came the second emergency transmission. Engineering crew member recovered. Symptoms resolved after exposure to humans' recycled air. Drilax's retinal lobes rippled. Recovered. Affirmative. Exposure to trace human respiratory enzymes triggered immune adaptation. Virus rendered inert. Human immune system appears to carry regulatory agents that suppress Omega-class viral aggression. Drilax stood motionless for a full minute. Then it whispered, they are immune. Kyle sneezed again, then muttered, man, I need a shower. He didn't know that by the next morning, he'd be the subject of an emergency summit of 32 planetary governments, all debating whether to quarantine Earth or beg for human medical technology. He'd just think it was a particularly annoying cold. And he'd still be waiting for someone to bring him a box of tissues. Drilax stood in the observation chamber, 3 of its limbs pressed to the glass, watching Kyle jog in slow circles around the containment unit. His heart rate was elevated but within acceptable parameters. The human had performed a series of stretches, then taken to pacing, then jogging, then doing push-ups against the wall. There was no sign of viral progression. Not in him, and more disturbingly not in the crew members who'd briefly shared filtered air with him. A message pulsed across Drilax's neural pad from the council liaison, proceed with virological dissection if specimen becomes unstable. Drilax muted the alert and turned back to the AI console. Begin full culture analysis of subject's respiratory flora. Focus on enzymatic components. Sample required, the AI replied. Drilax hesitated. The only method to obtain a respiratory culture without invasive procedure was not ideal. Kyle, Drilax said, activating the intercom, I require you to exhale into this device. A circular port opened near the floor, revealing a small glass dome with a blinking blue light. Kyle slowed his jog, sweat on his forehead. What is it? A breathalyzer. A sampling chamber. It will isolate your exhaled particulates for molecular profiling. Sounds fancy. What if I just breathe on it and nothing happens? Then we will request you breathe harder. Kyle leaned down, taking a deep breath. I hope this thing doesn't explode. I had a burrito pack last night. He exhaled fully into the dome, which hissed shut and retracted into the wall. The AI immediately began processing. Drilax remained silent, watching the culture analysis unfold in real time. Microbial colonies bloomed in seconds, then stalled. The AI hesitated. Unknown inhibitory agents detected. Viral replication halted after initial propagation. Explain, Drilax demanded. Trace compounds within subject's breath disrupt omega-class virus protein synthesis. No known analogs in current database. Kyle was now balancing on one foot, trying to touch his toes. So, do I have superpowers or what? Drilax ignored him. Cross-reference compound structure with Earth medicinals. Match detected, the AI replied. Compound shares similarities with guaifenesin and pseudoephedrine derivatives. Drilax turned slowly. You emit pharmaceutical agents through respiration? Kyle scratched his chin. I mean, I took that Dayquil you gave me earlier. Maybe it's still in my system. You metabolized it and exhaled it in active form? Well, yeah. That's how metabolism works. You absorb it, break it down, and some of it comes out through breath, skin, urine. That is not how pharmacokinetics function in most sentient species. Kyle stepped closer to the glass. You guys don't sweat out medicine? We do not sweat, Drilax said flatly. A second message buzzed in. Council requests immediate sample of human mucus for off-world testing. Drilax suppressed a groan. Kyle, I need you to blow your nose into this. Another compartment opened, revealing a sterile tissue and a transparent sealed container. Kyle raised an eyebrow. You want a booger in a box? It is for interplanetary research. Well, put it that way. He blew his nose into the tissue, folded it twice, and inserted it into the container. The AI sealed it with a magnetic lock and slid it into the outbound chute. Sample dispatched, it confirmed. 20 minutes passed. Drilax remained rooted to the same spot, watching the readings stabilize. Kyle had stopped exercising and was now lying flat on the padded bench, humming tunelessly. His temperature had dropped half a degree and his energy levels had normalized. Another alert came through. The engineering crew members previously exposed had resumed duties, displaying no symptoms. One of them, a Gorthian technician, had even asked for permission to inhale more of the human's ambient air for wellness optimization. Drilax transmitted a sharp denial. Kyle, it said, trying to maintain composure, what are the standard human protocols upon infection with this virus? Stay home. Rest. Hydrate. Maybe binge some shows. That's about it. No quarantine chambers? No neural isolation? No induced hibernation? You're describing a hospital stay. We don't do that unless someone's, like, really sick. Most people just go to work anyway. Drilax stared through the glass. You continue labor during infection? Sure. I mean, we shouldn't, but bills don't stop just because your nose is running. Your species willingly spreads pathogens for economic reasons? Kyle shrugged. It's not ideal, but yeah. Employers don't love sick days. Drilax's cranial ridges pulsed gently. Your civilization's resilience borders on pathological. Kyle sat up, rubbing the back of his neck. We've been through worse. You should see cold season in Chicago. People walking around like zombies, coughing into sleeves, still going to meetings. A soft chime interrupted them. Council transmission incoming, the AI said. Priority level, executive. Drilax opened the stream. 3 figures appeared on the hollow display, each from a different sector of the Galactic Council. Counselor Varn's translucent carapace shimmered with agitation. Drilax, Varn began. We have reviewed your samples. The human subject is not merely resistant. Its biological output is actively therapeutic in certain environments. Drilax bowed slightly. Confirmed, counselors. I have also observed we have dispatched a diplomatic envoy to Earth. We require a full inventory of their over-the-counter pharmaceuticals immediately. Kyle frowned. Wait, you're what? Varn continued. We believe their medicines may hold the key to reversing several long-standing viral threats across 14 systems. Kyle stood, arms crossed. You're telling me you want cold meds to cure space diseases? Precisely. Kyle blinked. You know most of that stuff isn't even prescription, right? You can buy it at a gas station. Varn tilted its head. Your civilization allows open access to viral suppressant agents? Of course. You think we go to a doctor every time we sneeze? The second counselor, a floating being comprised mostly of vapor, spoke for the first time. We propose the establishment of a permanent Earth pharmaco-diplomatic outpost. Kyle looked at Drilax. Are they trying to build a Walgreens on our planet? Drilax didn't respond. Instead, it signaled the AI. Begin translation of all Earth pharmaceutical packaging. Prioritize symptom management compounds. Kyle shook his head. You're gonna be real confused when you get to the part about non-drowsy nighttime formula. The third counselor, who had remained silent, finally addressed Kyle directly. Human, are you willing to share your medicinal knowledge for the benefit of the collective? Kyle raised an eyebrow. You want me to be your drug consultant? Correct. He laughed. I was a warehouse shift supervisor back home. I only know what's written on the back of a bottle. That is sufficient. Drilax turned to him. You may be the most medically influential being in the quadrant. Kyle rubbed his temples. All because I had a cold. Drilax watched him carefully. No, because you survived it with a peppermint-flavored syrup and continued doing calisthenics in quarantine. The chamber door hissed slightly, not to open, but as an indication that pressure was stabilizing. Outside, the medical staff had begun rearranging the outer corridor not for additional containment, but for a research annex. Kyle lay back down and stared at the ceiling. Do I at least get hazard pay? Drilax didn't answer, but the AI pinged him moments later with a new update. Council has approved Earth-human biochemical status, strategic asset. Kyle let out a long sigh. Great. I'm medicine now. He pulled the blanket over his head and muttered something about cough drops and interstellar insanity. The decontamination corridor outside the quarantine unit had been entirely repurposed by the following cycle. What was once a sterile buffer zone now resembled a makeshift research hub, complete with open reagent trays, scanning pylons, and an unfortunate number of puzzled alien researchers trying to make sense of Earth's most ubiquitous cure-all. The common cold remedy aisle. Drilax observed the activity through a narrow viewport. One of the younger assistants, a moss-colored Yeltrin, was holding a packet of generic cough suppressants upside down, visibly distressed. This compound promises maximum strength. The Yeltrin's voice buzzed with uncertainty. Yet it contains only 2 active ingredients. Why is it called maximum? Human marketing is not bound by chemical logic, Drilax replied. They appear to exaggerate labels for psychological reassurance. Another assistant, a gelatinous entity with a nervous vibrato to its speech, tapped on a bottle labeled Children's Nighttime Cold Relief and recoiled. This one tastes of synthetic cherries and is labeled for juvenile ingestion. The dosage is lower, yet the formulation is nearly identical. They calibrate flavor and volume to age demographics. It is cultural, not pharmacological. Kyle, now free from the quarantine chamber, leaned against the wall nearby. He had been released under close supervision after 3 separate alien committees confirmed he posed no immediate threat. His temperature had returned to baseline and he'd slept for 12 hours straight, waking up mostly annoyed that his breakfast had been delivered in a vacuum-sealed pouch labeled nutrient paste mild. If you guys are going to reverse engineer cold medicine, you might want to start with understanding why people take it in the first place, he said, watching the gelatinous researcher attempt to interpret a dosing chart with 8 separate font sizes. The Yeltrin looked up. Explain. You don't take it to cure the virus. You take it so you can function like you're not sick. Block the symptoms, keep working, pretend you're fine until you actually are. Drilax turned toward him. But that creates an illusion of health. It masks the infection. Exactly. So you feel better even if you're not better yet. Humans like to feel in control. Even when we're not. Several of the researchers exchanged uneasy glances. The gelatinous one rippled faintly. This is pharmacological deception. Kyle raised an eyebrow. And yet it works. Drilax crossed one limb over the other. Your medications are not curative. They are palliative. Adaptive. They support the host through the illness rather than eradicate the pathogen directly. That's the idea. Your body does the heavy lifting. The meds are just there so you can sleep, breathe, and not cough your lungs out during a meeting. The AI terminal beside them chimed with a fresh dataset. New analysis confirms active compounds in human medications do not eliminate viral presence. They suppress surface-level symptoms while immune response completes the viral elimination process. Drilax tapped a sequence on the console. Run secondary analysis of immune response timelines in human subject. Compare to known omega-class host deterioration. The results populated in seconds. Kyle glanced over. What's it say? Your immune system neutralized the virus in under 30 hours. The median for omega-class species is 142 hours with fatal complications by hour 60. Kyle gave a low whistle. That's not a fair fight. No, Drilax agreed. It is not. One of the researchers who had been silently cataloging Earth brand lozenges for the past hour finally looked up. Why then are humans not immune to all viruses? Because viruses mutate, Kyle said. We just keep up. Barely. Some years the flu knocks people out for a week. Sometimes it's just a sore throat. But we adapt. Or we get vaccines. Vaccines? Preemptive immunity. You train your immune system with a harmless version of the virus. So if the real one shows up, your body's already got the playbook. The gelatinous researcher quivered. You simulate infection deliberately? Well, not with the bad parts. Just enough to teach the body what to look for. The Yeltrin blinked slowly. That is grotesquely clever. Thanks. We thought it was too. Drilax turned away from the console and motioned toward the small lab table where several sample vials had been neatly arranged. We have replicated the base components of your medications using local compounds. Initial trials on contained viral samples show symptom suppression but no antiviral activity. That's about right, Kyle said. It's not a cure. It just makes you feel like it's less of a problem. Drilax hesitated. We are not accustomed to treating symptoms without targeting the cause. Well, maybe you don't have to. Sometimes people just need to get through the day. The AI chimed again. Additional note, exposure to human exhalation continues to produce mild immunological benefits in select species. Gorthian immune cell stimulation increased by 14% after ambient exposure. Kyle blinked. Wait, you're telling me breathing near me is boosting their immune systems? It appears so, Drilax replied. Though the mechanism is not yet understood, the gelatinous researcher made a warbling sound of alarm. We must not allow unregulated proximity. We may destabilize existing immunological baselines. Kyle held up his hands. Relax, I'm not going around breathing on people for fun. Regardless, Drilax said, we must consider containment of the phenomenon. Your biology is functionally disruptive in ways we did not anticipate. Kyle sighed. So what now? More tests? Another tube to sleep in while you study my breath? No, Drilax said, folding its limbs. We have enough data. The council has decided. Another Yeltrin entered the room carrying a slim data slate. It handed it to Drilax, who skimmed the contents. The Galactic Council has approved a new protocol. Earth medications are to be adopted for symptom management in low-threat viral environments. Human pharmaceutical practices are to be studied as alternative models for resilience-based healthcare. Kyle blinked. You're actually gonna use cold medicine? Drilax handed him the slate, with minor adjustments for species compatibility. Your Dayquil will become part of the standard emergency kit for 6 planetary coalitions. Well, Kyle said, rubbing his chin, I guess that's one way to get famous. The gelatinous researcher burbled. This does not make you famous. Kyle grinned. I'm not the one putting my name on alien cough syrup. Drilax ignored that. We've also updated your status with the council. Let me guess, Kyle said, walking biohazard? Health consultant. He stared. Seriously. Your understanding of adaptive pharmacology is unconventional but effective. You will assist with the distribution and education of Earth-derived symptom management strategies. Wait, so I'm teaching aliens how to take cold meds? You are the most experienced candidate available. Kyle leaned back against the wall, eyes wide. That might be the weirdest job promotion I've ever had. Drilax turned back to the AI. Upload the full Earth medication database into the medical archive. Begin formulation of cross-species compatibility charts. Notify the Gorthian delegation their immunity enhancement request has been approved. The gelatinous researcher hesitated. What of containment protocols? Drilax paused. No longer necessary. The infection is no longer considered a threat. Kyle folded his arms. Guess I saved the galaxy by sneezing on it. No, Drilax corrected. You saved it by adapting to what we feared most and treating it as an inconvenience. Kyle looked around the room, aliens cataloging lozenges, scanning pill bottles, and analyzing breath samples like sacred relics from an ancient civilization. He shook his head. Next time, he said, remind me to bring NyQuil. It works better for sleeping. Drilax made a note. Add NyQuil to priority synthesis list. Outside the viewport, the last quarantine warning light blinked off. The corridor's usual lighting returned, casting a cool glow across the lab. There would be no more lockdowns, no more emergency broadcasts, just a human with a half-used bottle of cold medicine and a galaxy full of species now wondering if maybe, just maybe, resilience could be learned. Kyle stretched his arms and yawned. Anyone got coffee?